Trump's going to Scotland today. It makes me think, I don't know if you guys know how Europe is portrayed in America. And Americans, correct me if I'm wrong, that we don't pretend that this is the way it is. And Europeans, correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else, correct me if I'm wrong. Even in America, correct me if I'm wrong if this isn't how it is, even if this is the way we depict it. But my impression of Europe from the way we depict you in America is that y'all all just rolled over for Germany in World War II. And the only ones who didn't maybe was the British because they were fighting in the trenches and they were fighting. And I saw that Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is a fantastic anti-Trump movie, but and supposedly based on real events. So we really glorify Britain standing up to the Nazis because of their proximity to white supremacist whiteness, I guess. This idea of like putting them above the rest of Europe is probably the reason for that, because I'm sure there was opposition to the Nazis even in Germany and around the rest of Europe. But now that Trump's going to Scotland, first of all, we depict Europe as being like, we had to save you. And so when I see, and first of all, respect to artists and everyone, activists and everyone speaking out against genocide, in Britain or UK adjacent or whatever it is, Bob Villain and Kneecap and people that we've heard of over here for doing this, and everybody around the world for doing that, for speaking up against war and genocides. Thanks to everyone for doing that. But at the same time, I did see a fairly large fascist march in Britain and England, I believe, and it just made me think, what did we save y'all's asses for anyway? You know, what did we save your scraggly country for that was, you know, trying to stand up to the Nazis supposedly, but had some internal division over that? And, you know, to be honest, you know, wouldn't have done it by themselves. What did we save y'all for anyway if you're going to let fascists march around your country? Okay, well, we let fascists take over our country entirely. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of room to talk. That brings me back to Trump going to Scotland. Y'all can keep him. Yeah, y'all can. He doesn't need to come back in any form whatsoever. We don't need Trump here. And you know why. You should know why. But also, if you suck up to him, like I think he's meeting Keir Starmer first, if you suck up to him, yeah, then we shouldn't have saved your country. You know, you're sucking up to the same enemy you supposedly so bravely defied 80 years ago. And it's like, you know, there's no excuse for sucking up to Trump. You stand up to Trump. I will give President Sheinbaum in Mexico, a little bit of a pass because she apparently didn't do anything other than talk sweet to him and then got some concessions or whatever. At the same time, it feels a little icky even saying that. So that's the threshold. Like, maybe you can trick him with some false praise, but if you're not tricking him and convincing the rest of us that you've tricked him, then you're kind of going down with him. And that's not a path you want to go down. You supposedly didn't want to go down there. You're probably better at not going down that path than we give you credit for, Europe. But let's see. Like, if you guys had kept J.D. Vance, just kept him as a bargaining chip when he went to Greenland, if you're like, actually, we want to keep our country, so we'll keep J.D. Vance, y'all would have kept your previous pope. There's a lot of things that would have been different if y'all just kept J.D. Vance and said, you know what, if y'all are threatening our country, we're going to go ahead and keep him as a bargaining chip. And ask for more than just the continuation of your country. Ask for somebody to do something against Trump. Like, it doesn't matter how unconventional it is. We're done with Trump, and even his supporters are done with Trump. No one's going to cry. No one cries when a Death Star full of Nazis dies, or a Death Star full of Trump-Hooteniers dies. It's the same thing, except Trump-Hooteniers is a little worse because we've had 80 years to talk about this and point out why it's wrong, and they're still doing it, and they're doing it here this time. And then y'all are putting up with it there this time. So don't do that. Stand up to the fascists the same way you did before, or better, in a more creative and clever way. And thank you. Thanks for sharing this message, commenting, or whatever, putting forth your own messages to similar effect. I call it the Pillow Revolution because we can do it from bed or the bath. We can do it on our phones. We can do it with love. We can do it on our sleep when they do it to themselves. But they're going to show themselves, they're going to show whose side they're on when Trump visits Europe. So don't suck up to Trump. He's going down here, and everybody who's been enabling him and supporting him here is going down. We should be promising automatic citizenship to all of their victims for a starting point, baseline, and then make compensation, such as giving them the houses of the ICE and other kidnappers who have been doing this, and revoking their citizenship. The people who've been trying to take citizenship away from babies in this country, we can revoke their citizenship. We haven't taken citizenship away from anybody, hardly, besides some denaturalizations throughout our history, which are always part of the same white supremacist regime, including we took away citizenship of women who married immigrants about 100 years ago or so. That's how white supremacist it was. And then we tweaked it. So it was if the immigrants were white enough, they could keep their citizenship. That's how white supremacist it is. But if they married brown enough immigrants, they would lose their citizenship. That's how white supremacist it is here. And do not suck up to that. Do not kowtow to that. We got to stop Trump and Putin and Trump Putineers and Netanyahu. We got to stop all these white supremacists slash Zionists, their little off-brand thing, slash Hindu nationalists, Modi and etc. slash any of them. We got to stop them all, but we stop it at the top. Cut off Trump and Putin and we save the world. And Netanyahu. Thanks.